There is a piece of Philippine history sitting in every pasalubong box, small, golden, wrapped in cellophane twisted at both ends. Yema. You have eaten it your whole life. You probably learned to make it from your mother or your lola. You probably never once stopped to ask where it came from, why it exists, what its presence in Filipino culture actually says about 333 years of colonial history and the extraordinary resilience of the Filipino people. Today, we tell you the full story of Yema. And it is more fascinating than you ever imagined a small golden candy could be. To understand Yema, you have to understand what Spain did to the Philippines, not just politically, but agriculturally and economically. When Spanish missionaries arrived in the Philippines in the 16th century, they brought with them not just Christianity and colonial administration, they brought livestock. And specifically, they brought chickens. And with the chickens came eggs. And with eggs came an enormous problem that nobody talks about in Philippine history classrooms. The Catholic Church required enormous quantities of egg whites. For centuries across the Spanish colonial world in the Philippines, in Mexico, in Peru, in Spain itself, egg whites were used in massive quantities to clarify wine, to strengthen and whiten the walls of churches and colonial buildings, and most significantly, to starch the habits and vestments of the religious orders. The egg whites were used, and the egg yolks were thrown away. Convents and monasteries across the Spanish colonial world were left with mountains of unused egg yolks every single day. And the nuns, resourceful, creative, and unwilling to waste, began experimenting with what they could make from them. What they made changed the dessert culture of every nation Spain ever touched. This is not a Philippine story alone. It is a story that echoes across the entire Spanish colonial world. In Portugal and Spain, the tradition of using egg yolks in sweets is ancient pastel de nata, tocinhos doce, ovos moles, all born from the same surplus of egg yolks in religious institutions. In Mexico, another Spanish colony, cajeta, and other egg yolk-based confections emerged from the same convent kitchens. And in the Philippines, the nuns of the colonial convents began combining those surplus egg yolks with the abundant local supply of condensed milk and sugar to create something uniquely Filipino. They created yema. The word itself is Spanish yema, means egg yolk. It is the most literal possible name for what the candy is. Pure egg yolk, sweetened, shaped, made golden and smooth and rich. But what the Spanish nuns began in convent kitchens, Filipino hands transformed into something that belongs entirely to the Philippines now. Here is what makes Yema genuinely extraordinary as a piece of cultural history. It is a candy that carries the fingerprints of colonization in its very ingredients, and yet it became one of the most beloved and distinctly Filipino foods in existence. Think about what Yema represents. The egg whites were used for the church, for the colonial buildings, for the vestments of the priests who were actively suppressing Filipino culture and religion. And the egg yolks, the part that was left behind, the part that was considered the waste, the part that nobody important wanted, were taken by Filipino hands and turned into gold. Literally turned into gold. Small, shining, cellophane-wrapped gold. There is a metaphor in Yema that no history textbook has ever been brave enough to write. The colonial system took what it wanted and discarded the rest. And the Filipino people took what was discarded and made it beautiful, made it sweet, made it something worth passing down through generations. That is not just the story of a candy. That is the story of Filipino resilience in its most delicious form. The classic Yema recipe is deceptively simple. Egg yolks, condensed milk, sugar, sometimes butter, sometimes a little calamansi or vanilla for flavoring. Cooked slowly over low heat, stirred constantly, patiently, until the mixture thickens and pulls away from the sides of the pan. Then shaped by hand, rolled into balls, or formed into the distinctive pyramid shape that makes Yema instantly recognizable and wrapped in cellophane. But across the Philippines, that simple foundation has been transformed into dozens of regional variations that reflect the incredible diversity of Filipino culinary tradition. In Laguna, famous for its dairy industry, yema is made with fresh Carabao milk instead of condensed milk, giving it a richer, more complex flavor that is completely unlike the yema made anywhere else in the country. In Batangas, yema is sometimes flavored with local muscovado sugar, giving it a deeper, more caramel-like quality. In the Visayas, yema variations incorporate local flavors and textures that reflect the distinct culinary identity of the region. And in every Filipino household, every lola has her own version, her own ratio of yolk to milk, her own technique for knowing exactly when the mixture is ready, her own way of wrapping it that she learned from her own mother who learned it from hers. Yema is one of the few foods in Philippine culture where the recipe is less a fixed document and more a living conversation passed from hand to hand across generations. The pyramid shape of yema deserves its own moment of recognition. The classic yema pyramid, that distinctive triangular form with its twisted cellophane wrapper, is one of the most recognizable shapes in Filipino food culture. It is instantly associated with pasalubong, with homecoming, with someone who traveled somewhere and came back with something sweet. Pasalubong itself is one of the most beautiful concepts in Filipino culture. The tradition of bringing gifts home, of never arriving empty-handed, of thinking of the people you left behind even while you were away, is something deeply Filipino. And yema has been one of the most common pasalubong gifts for generations because it travels well, keeps well, and carries an immediate emotional association with care and homecoming. When a Filipino opens a box of pasalubong and finds yema inside, they are not just finding candy. They are finding evidence that someone thought of them, that someone loved them enough to bring something home. That emotional weight carried by a small golden pyramid of egg yolk and condensed milk is extraordinary. Today, yema is having a moment. Filipino pastry chefs and food entrepreneurs are elevating yema in ways that honor its history while pushing it into entirely new territory. Yema cake. A Filipino chiffon cake frosted with a thick yema cream has become one of the most popular Filipino desserts of the last decade. Yema-flavored ice cream, yema-filled pastries, yema spreads, yema incorporated into modern Filipino fine dining in ways that would have been unimaginable a generation ago. And on social media, Filipino food content creators are bringing yema to audiences around the world who have never heard of it. People in Europe, America, Japan, and across Asia are discovering yema for the first time and falling in love with something Filipinos have known their whole lives. Your Lola's yema recipe is a piece of Philippine history. It connects you to the convent kitchens of the 16th century, to the resourceful nuns who refused to waste what they had been given, to the Filipino hands that took a colonial byproduct and made it into something golden, to every market stall and pasalubong shop and family kitchen where yema has been made and shared and carried home with love for hundreds of years. The next time you unwrap a yema, that small, golden, cellophane-twisted piece of Philippine history, know what you are holding. You are holding resilience. You are holding creativity. You are holding the proof that the Filipino people have always had the ability to take whatever they were left with and make it beautiful. They took the yolk, the part nobody wanted, the part left behind, and they made gold. Subscribe to They Erased. Because Philippine culture is not just in the history books and the mythology. It is in the food on your table. It is in the candy your Lola made. It is in every small, beautiful thing that survived colonization because Filipino hands refused to let it disappear. Comment below, does your Lola make yema, and does she have a secret ingredient nobody else knows about?